When the gambling is complete, oysters open their shell by taking advantage of an opportunity, and oysters eat oysters. If your mother opens too much, your fate could be like oysters or worse. Caution: this video is to explain the fourth rule of the last video, so if you are still not seeing it, you wish you would see it and then return to the clip. Enjoyable viewing. We hear a lot that silence is the language of every wise man. But have you ever asked yourself, why? Am I going to tell you from the beginning of humanity? And humans have a belief that everything is rare and expensive, and everything is very cheap. For example, gold is expensive because it exists in limited quantities, and this is why humans in some ancient civilizations used gold even within their religious rituals, and they considered gold as a symbol of happiness and goodness. So many of your words no one will hear it, because it will become cheap in their eyes. But if your words were few, it is not clearly explained, people will love your words and respect them even if they are trivial, and more importantly, the more you tell, the more likely you are to say something. Let people hate you or see as a stupid person what has any value. At that time, Marquis was a great military hero, capable of achieving terrifying victories with decisive battles and other things. Marx: I can save Rome from destruction over and over again. Is it Marx Bowie? Most of his life on the battlefield. There were very few people who knew him personally, so they became like a living legend among the people. People used to talk about this talk that appeared to be direct. Originally Marx was in the eyes of the people as a revered angel who was there to protect them, but what became Marcus decided to take advantage of his military and political position among the people. In order to run for the position of consul, and this position, which is the highest position in Rome, the candidates for the position had to come out and tell a speech to the people before the elections, and indeed Marcus attended among the people and wrote speeches. Most people did not hear words, and originally because Marquis was exposing his wounds, he was showing wounds and scars caused by wars, and this thing was enough to move people's feelings and affect their hearts because the wounds were living proof of his courage and devotion to the homeland and the people. And indeed it was very clear that Marx is undoubtedly the winner of the election. But when election day came, Marx appeared and preached a second time among the people, but this time all his words were directed to the rich with him, and every word was looking forward to the fruits of chaos, filled and stuffed with arrogance and arrogance. All his talk was about his complete confidence in winning the elections, away from boasting about his achievements in battles. People were listening. But this time they knew that inside it was the legend before them. There was a boastful and vile person, and very quickly, the news of Marx's speech spread to the people in Rome, and everyone he refused that he was winning the election. Indeed, Marquis lost the elections clearly, and his men on the battlefields. He is a worthless soldier, broken-minded, and Halsey annoyed Marx so much that he was planning revenge. And weeks later a grain ship arrived in Rome, and the elders of the city wanted to distribute it to the people, but it was time that Marx entered and convinced them. The distribution was going to the detriment of the higher interests of Rome, and indeed, as Marcus had planned, the distribution was cancelled. When the people heard this, they were very provoked by what they had done. Marquis and demanded a formal apology from him, but he did refuse. At this moment, demonstrations, riots and vandalism began to erupt everywhere, to the extent that the Senate agreed that it was distributing grain to the people and evacuating Marcus to apologize to them. And indeed Marcus went and addressed the people for the last time, and everyone was silent and listened to him. His words were really slow and soft, but with time he began to turn into discordant and annoying words and began to insult and insult. And the voice of arrogance and arrogance returned to Marquis's words, and in one moment, the people exploded and got off the pulpit, and after consulting the representatives of the people, they sentenced him to death. But after the nobility intervened, his sentence was commuted to life imprisonment. Before Marx entered politics, his name gave people a sense of awe and greatness, and people loved him, because they were achievements, and they talked about him, and they appeared, and he was a great man in courage, and because people did not know him personally, so they became considered a legend, and his name became a sign of glory. But when people heard many of Marcus's words, were able to know more about him. And here is the legendary mask that Marcus was wearing and showing a person who hated and boasted to the greatest degree that I seem to understand that if Marx's words were less than heck, they would not have felt arrogance, and he would remain the first and last loved ones of the people. Therefore, you are telling something foolish worse than you are doing, so keep your words little so that they become valuable and required for people. Do not keep silent just so that you look like a venerable person, and shut up because you are not listening to people. Always keep you listening, because the one who hears more knows more, so that in the Holy Quran, our Lord always mentions hearing, the apple of sight, is the rule saved. But would you like me to tell you a little secret, and I ask you, you hear me? Please, because the topic is really important. Currently we are in a time when wars are made by ideas and words. I will tell you something, and think about it between you and yourself. If you have a unit that has all the evolution that humans have reached today, and you return 1,000 years to Laura and you have half-lash, how will you prove to people at that time that you are coming from the future? You are right, you have the flash, and it has all the evidence that you need, but you do not have a way to extract it, the information from it. I want to ask you, do you know how to make a tender for the computer? Do you know how to make gunpowder? Well, do you know how to make insulin? Crescent moon. You know even the events that happened 1,000 years ago to tell them about their future. I say that we are in a time of development, but are we developed? Well, who is doing all this today? If a person comes up and opposes the feminist movement or tells that homosexuality is something wrong and we must fight it, they will be considered backward and fanatical people who must be punished, while in international companies they promote sex with children and no one talks about the subject in the first place. In the end, the whole issue is solved with a hypocritical apology from the company and all the people who support feminism and homosexuality and attack anyone who criticizes them. Where are you? Why aren't you talking about it? Is this normal for you? Even governments are silent. Although this thing is criminalized by law, right or not. You promote pornography, gay children are criminalized by law, yet governments are silent. It's really strange. Therefore, I would like to tell you that governments, law, and society are nothing but a lie and a big political game so that people walk in one way. Everything they do until they evacuate us within the scope of governance. But if everyone in us thinks outside the box, they will not have the ability to create a different system for each of us. And here it will lead to a collapse, and everything is clear and literally, frankness in a belief that I believe in, and I am the one who invented it and worked on it every day, and I try to bring you to the same belief. This belief is the robot system, or in the sense of the restart system. We have to restart the world, we have to restart ourselves, and most importantly our beliefs. And I started remembering one thing that the devil did was to convince the world that MO exists. Since you heard my words for this moment, you join him and walk with me with the same beliefs. And with the same ideas you will get tired and you will work a lot for days, months and years. And I guarantee you that it is something easy and not everyone will be able to deliver it. But in return I promise each one of you a better life. A life in which you will be happy, a life in which you will be grateful that you live in it. And if we walk together, I promise you we will change what the world has seen before.